Hey, Chem 30s, Manchak here with another video lesson for you, and this one is hopefully going to be just a quick one. I'm going to use it to introduce you to Unit C, which is our organic chemistry unit, and for those that you like to ask, this is probably our most straightforward unit of Chem 30. For most people it picks up pretty quickly, and as long as you can manage concept C2, which is the foundational concept, the concept that you really need to master before you move on to anything else, then you should be golden. The other thing I'm going to do with this video lesson is run you through concept C1, which is a very, very quick concept that goes through what an organic compound is and is not. So before we go into that, what I'd like to do is just show you this document. This is your concept checklist out of your Google Classroom. You can find that at the top in general information. And you'll see that Unit C is actually really called Chemical Changes of Organic Compounds. I just call it organic chemistry because it's your first introduction to that. And it's going to have you guys basically looking at two general outcomes. You're going to explore organic compounds as a common form of matter. And we've explored other kinds of compounds already, right? We've explored ionic compounds and molecular compounds. And we've even subdivided those into acids and bases and other things like that. What we're going to do now is we're going to explore another branch, a huge branch of chemistry, which is organic compounds. So you're going to learn a new naming system to tack on to the ones we've learned already for ionic and molecular compounds. You're going to learn about the properties of some of these organic compounds, which is going to require us to go back in our memories to Chem 20 and think about intermolecular forces again. And if I just said that and you have no idea what I'm talking about, probably a good idea to go back and just have a review in your textbook of some of that stuff from the very first unit we covered in Chem 20, Unit A. We're also going to look at some reactions that involve, chemical reactions that involve organic compounds, and try to decide and figure out how some of these compounds are formed. Inside all of that, I'm going to try to make as many connections as I can to what you guys encounter in your lives. So the different kinds of organic compounds you might encounter and where they fit in. For those of you taking Biology 30 or looking to go into biology in university, you're going to find a lot of connections between what goes on in organic chemistry and what goes on in biology. And I think that'll become obvious as we jump into concept C1. So just scrolling down here, there are 8 concepts that we're going to cover in this unit. Sorry for the clicking of my old mouse. We'll do concept C1 in this video lesson, and then I'm going to cover concept C2 in 2 subsequent videos. The first video I've already recorded at the time of me doing this one, and it was recorded actually last year. So I make mention of, your sub will give you this. You're going to just have to track that stuff down on Google Classroom, and it won't be hard to find. I had done it when I was going to be away one day and wanted to teach it using a video lesson. So be aware of that, please. So that's going to take me a couple of lessons to get through, or a couple of videos to get through. So there's a lot to run through. Concept C2 is a big one, guys, and I need to make sure you understand it as clearly as you can before we move on to C3, C4, etc., etc. Okay, so we're going to go from everything from very simple organic compounds like propane or butane or methane, and we're going to get into more complex organic compounds, things like organic halides, things like alcohols and polymers, and we're going to talk about certain types of reactions like combustion reactions or addition and substitution reactions. So we're going to be all over the place in this unit, and I hope that makes sense to you. I'm just going to go back to my notes here and remind myself. So there's going to be 3 videos covering concepts C1 and C2. So that should be about, I'm going to say about an hour's worth of video, maybe a little longer for you. Sorry, pause it, do some stuff, jump back to it when you need to. You don't have to sit through it all at once. C1 I'm going to cover in this video, which is how to recognize organic compounds, what's important about them, and ones that are important in your daily lives. And then C2 is very foundational. We're going to introduce what hydrocarbons are, and we're going to jump into talking about alkanes first, how we deal with branched hydrocarbons and cyclical hydrocarbons, and then we'll jump into alkenes and alkynes after that. I've got a couple of videos up here that I'll put on the Google Classroom and you guys will have access to for concepts C1 and C2. This one done by Crash Course is actually really good. I like it. The only thing is it goes a little bit deeper than I might go with you guys in this class, but it's worth a watch. And then this video right here on isomers, I want you to watch as well, because we are going to fiddle around with an activity where I'm going to have you guys building some molecular models of compounds, and I'm trying to understand what isomers are, because that's an important concept in this unit. You guys will have some formative practice for this, going through worksheets 1 and 1A, and at the end of the second video that's introducing alkanes to you, you'll get an introduction to those worksheets, and you guys can see how they're supposed to be done, and they'll be on the Google Classroom. And then you guys will also be working through this activity. It'll continue throughout the unit. We'll come back to it in bits and pieces, but the first part of the activity is on the Google Classroom, and you can check it out. It looks a little bit like this. It's going to be in a PDF form when I get it up there. And your first task is going to be to actually make a molecular model kit and collect the stuff that you need, and then we'll be practicing building some structural isomers, and you guys will be taking pictures of those and sending those pictures off to me, and I'll be giving you feedback on those. So I think it'd be worthwhile. I think this is a worthwhile activity. I think you could have some fun with it, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. As always, I'll have a practice quiz on concepts C1 and C2 that you guys will do the practice formative quiz, and then of course, as always, we will have a summative quiz afterwards. So I'm going to just quickly jump into the PowerPoint and get started with that for you guys, so that we can get through this quick first lesson. So I'm sorry, it says Unit A. This is actually Unit C for us. When I've taught this in the past, I've often put this as the first unit that we do, but I'm not doing that anymore. This is an introduction to organic chemistry, and you're going to learn about common organic compounds, describe their properties and reactions, and the significance of organic chemistry in the context of technological application and quality of life is also going to be explored. So we'll jump into talking about some of the things that you're going to learn, or ways that you can apply organic chemistry to your lives. So this is concept C1 right here. This is our first introduction to what organic chemistry is all about. Your objectives are to define what organic compounds are, and describe them as compounds containing carbon, but recognizing there are some exceptions to that rule, and we'll go over those. And then you're gonna need to be able to identify and describe significant organic compounds that you'll find in your daily lives by demonstrating a knowledge of where they come from and how you use them. So, this second objective, we'll start out with this very slowly, and I want you guys just to be able to identify stuff that you would find in your house that would be considered an organic compound, or that you might use, like gasoline or natural gas are organic compounds, but you could also describe proteins as organic compounds. So there's lots of other ways that we can get through that, and we'll build on this concept as we move through this objective as we move through the unit. So what is organic chemistry? Basically, organic chemistry is the branch of chemistry that studies compounds containing carbon. Now, to say that anything that contains carbon is an organic compound is not entirely true. And so there's, like all of our rules, there are some exceptions. We would say that oxides of carbon, like carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, are not organic compounds. And then we would say ionic compounds that use carbon-based ions, for example, the cyanide, carbide, and carbonate ions. And carbonate's an important one to remember. So carbonate is I hate drawing with this thing, CO3, remember, 2-. So anything with the carbonate ion on it will also not be considered organic. It would be considered inorganic. So those are your examples. We've got the oxides of carbon, they are not organic. The ionic compounds containing carbon-based ions, including cyanide. Remember, cyanide is Cn, 1-, and carbide ion, I think carbide ion is C2, 1-. Those ones are not considered to be organic. Okay? Everything else for this point you should consider to be organic, even if it doesn't appear on the surface to be organic. The major source of carbon that we're interested in is from previously living organisms. So in other words, this whole organic part of organic chemistry, yeah, it's the carbon that is the most important. However, that carbon usually was derived or found its way, those compounds found their way from something living, either created by those living things or created after those living things had broken down. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Really important slide here that I want you guys to be aware of. Much of this unit we're going to deal with looking at fossil fuels. However, how they are refined into usable chemicals. So we're going to start with the basics, the very simple organic compounds that we get out of things like natural gas or crude oil or even some of the bitumen that we take out of the oil sands. And then we're going to move into, so those are things like alkenes, alkynes, and alkanes. Then we're going to get into more complex compounds like organic halides, esters, alcohols, carboxylic acids, and then we're going to play around with some of the reactions that involve organic compounds and pertain to industry. And then because I'm a biology guy, I also like to add in some of the reactions that might happen inside a human body or inside an organism to make things like proteins or fats. So we'll examine those kinds of things. So that's really quickly, that's concept C1, guys. Super, super easy concept. What is an organic compound? How can you identify it? What are the exceptions to the rule? And then I want you guys to sit down at some point and come up with 4, 5, 6 organic compounds that you would encounter in your daily life. Something that you consider to be a compound that you would consider to be organic and that you would encounter on a regular basis. And that then is where you're going to transition. Once you're done this video, go to the next one, please, which starts from this point where we're going to explore alkanes and work our way through that. And then you're going to find that there'll be a third video after that that goes into alkenes and alkynes, and that will wrap up concept C2. So this is the beginning of C2. That starts the next video, and the next 2 videos will cover C2 with some work assigned for you in those. So I hope that makes sense. As always, I'm available by email or we can connect online through a Google Meet or something like that. If you have any questions, track me down. Stay healthy, and we'll talk again soon.